Hi everyone, good evening. Welcome again in another discussion, chit chat, whatever you can call. And like always, these sessions are casual conversations wherein we try to strike a balance to talk more on the educational side related to the equity markets. And of course, whatever views are being shared by any of our guests or speaker are individual and definitely, the idea is to take that conversation as a starting point, and the views may or may not pan out the way the speakers have anticipated, but we always try to ensure that we are speaking best to our capacity and with honest intent. So, definitely, some time back, there were conversations about the Indian elections and what its outcome would be, so we saw a little bit of uncertainty around that time. So that has passed comfortably, and markets have been generous for quite some time. And if you talk about last 1 or 2 weeks, I mean, there is not clarity. Index has been doing good, wherein the small caps and mid caps are observing either you can say less movement or they are correcting a bit. So I thought ki we should pick this discussion wherein we can talk about Fed and the elections coming, the US elections, wherein it has been believed that if one section wins, how the market would be, and if other person wins. So definitely we'll try to have such discussion. But again, we welcome all who can add value on this discussion. And thanks, Sandeep bhai, for joining in. So to start with the conversation, what implications we can have of this Fed action, and why? I mean, if I put the questions like this, what does Republican versus Democrat mean for the global market, and especially we are more concerned about Indian markets. So, what its repercussions or impact on Indian markets?
Hey Prince, thank you. It's just another day, another space kind of a thing. But glad that we are talking about macro, not about stocks, and surely not any vicious debate. Maybe we can open it for other speakers also and their questions. But meantime, we can let me try to give you at least an opening shot on this. So first of all, in another 3.5 hours, you have US Fed action, and someone jokingly wrote on Twitter that they should do 37.5 to surprise market, because whether they do 25 or 50, some segment of market will act surprised. So it's literally a toss. At the same time, this is just first of the. In a way, it is little uh, important because it is reversal. So any cycle, whether it is up cycle or down cycle, the first move is often seen with wider focus compared to a mid-cycle move. And what does that it mean? It basically means because Fed had done a series of rate hikes in last 1.5 years, 2 years. Now they are probably delayed it by at least couple of quarters. So given that world politics has become very very polarized even in US, people from the right wing, which is mostly hardliner Republicans, they think that Fed delayed it for the elections. Obviously, it's not your job or my job to speculate what is the case, but I'm just telling you, like, even within US polity, there are camps who feel that US Fed is no longer as unbiased, or in their word, um, bipartisan is the word they use in US all the time. So these institutions, not only in US, even anywhere, are supposed to be bipartisan. But there is a segment within US which thinks that US Fed delayed that by a couple of months, a couple of quarters at least. So here we are, just 2 months before Fed. If that right wing theory is right, then probably they will go with a bigger cut. But see, the point is, no one can, time the market, and unfortunately, fortunately, even Fed cannot. I mean, they are big players. They can swing the markets, but they can't time it. What does it mean? Uh, Usually we think of Fed as trendsetter, but it is common perception that they say markets are leading indicator, especially bond markets are leading indicator of Fed. In a sense, many times, especially for some of the weaker central banks, the international bond market forced them to do something on the FX side, on the bond side. So in a way, a lot of what will happen today is already factored in one way or another, right? So 25 or 50 doesn't matter. What matters is probably market is expecting in next 3 to 4 months, we'll probably see anywhere between 75 bips to 100 bips. So like it always happens, this will come out at 2 o'clock flash, followed by a press conference. And often the bigger words is during the conference where Fed chairman will say things, right, Mr. Powell. Now, just for academic interest, and again, I mean, pardon, because in a space like this, it is very tough to calibrate your statements. I'm sure there are many people who probably will know more than me, and there are some people who might not know some of these details. I'll try to keep it somewhere in the middle. So usually when these conferences happen, there is a statement, and I find it very interesting actually. So what happens is after every statement, there is a one pager kind of a thing. And what market does basically, they will immediately flash and they will strike out saying that from previous statement, these are the 7 adjectives which are removed. These are the 2 lines which are added, and this is the extra indicator. So those statements are qualitative. So the market analysis is often boiled down to the extent of where US Fed earlier said, let's say for a prolonged period, this restrictive policy will remain. And if they replace that word prolonged to just hypothetical example, naturally, from they see it till summers or something. So the analysis is literally at the delta, जिसको हम लोग some of the Hindi belt guys will remember, हम नंदन कॉमिक्स में वो 10 अंतर ढूंढो टाइप की एक्सरसाइज करते थे. So that's what exactly financial markets do between these Fed statements. So that's what will happen today. And then obviously a lot of heated non-economic debates will happen in run up to the US election. I personally feel that election has a potential to set up market mood and conditions and directions till summers more than these Fed actions. So that's what Prince on a high level.
Right, Sandeep. So we got few more speakers. Let's see if they have anything to ask or say. So we'll start with Ram Kumar. You can unmute and ask your question. Ram Kumar. Okay, Mr. Rakesh. I think they are busy or what? Rakesh, you there? So meanwhile, Sandeep bhai, do you think this Fed action, although you kind of touched upon, has that potential to decide who is going to win the election, or
No, not at all. I mean, that's too far-fetched, right? So, I mean, first of all, Fed cannot be reckless, and even if they are reckless, they will probably end up doing more harm than any benefit to the ruling dispensation. So, see, जिसको हम लोग Indian politics में बोलते हैं, a lot of chatter in politics is obviously, they say जुमलेबाजी, right? And every politician does in India, globally, anywhere, right? So 90% is rhetoric. In fact, the fun take I'll say, uh, back in 2016 when Trump won, he was saying a lot of controversial statements which no one was taking seriously. And then he won the elections, and then he started doing one by one, and that's when people started claiming. Sorry, complaining about it. Simply saying कि अरे ये तो जो बोल रहा था वो करने लगा, right? Because the blind assumption was that these are like rhetorics leading up to the elections, and no one will actually do some of those extreme controversial takes, right? So election will be fought on many other things, and surely US economy, our markets are not so bad or good. So there is a famous statement from Bill Clinton when he won. He basically said, "It's economy is stupid." So they always say, especially in US, that market conditions or market mood really, really matters a lot in elections. But right now, because of the huge inequality in every country and including in places like USA, there is a huge segment which actually don't like good markets because they feel more bigger victims. So, I mean, we all might be knowing about the Occupy Wall Street, which happened after 2008. So, what was happening is when markets recovered after, all the Ben Bernanke action and then Obama came and then markets rallied, and that made people even more angrier because they lost their homes, they lost their jobs, and when they saw the markets recovering because of constant government support, big bailouts. So even though on face of it market was looking fairly good and economy recovering, uh, the voter class was actually very angry. I mean, politics is a very, very complex topic, right? Even the experts who spend their years and, decades and hours on the ground kind of a thing, even they can't say. So I don't think we should try to speculate much. But short, quick take will be Fed action, at least today. I mean, it just sets a immediate agenda, which probably people will forget after 10-15 days. Unless they do a series ahead of elections and they somehow try to pop up the markets, in which case Trump being Trump obviously will create a lot of noise. He's already talking about Fed interfering in the elections. So those rhetorics, I mean, those are fun entertainment. Like any politics, we should watch it for fun and entertainment, but not take it more seriously as market participants.
Right. And I mean, coming to the market movement, Sandeep bhai, I mean, what's exactly happening from last 1 or 2 weeks? I mean, the index has been more or less doing good, and the broader market is, I mean, listless, or you can say the energy of the market has been drawn. So this is usual or something abnormal you see, and on the top of that, like there are couple of I mean rather so many people are coming with the various data points and trying to uh, make a, I mean, draw a parallel of the conditions of the likes of 2008 and other drawdowns, or the market went through some bigger corrections. So, I mean, do you anticipate that, or it's a futile exercise, as you said, and we are not capable of timing the market, and we should be focusing on our companies per se?
See, one thing is, I mean, especially since I'm assuming you're talking about Indian markets or even global markets, those big markets have so many bigger forces that it is almost next to impossible. So more seasoned an investor becomes or a fund manager becomes, less definitive he will be in talks. So the kind of confidence people carry in Twitter, including people like me, you, and our confidence levels are higher because we obviously have less experience and less understanding of market. You hear a seasoned investor, he will just use a lot of index. It depends. I don't know. And shorter the time frame, obviously anybody, nobody knows. So, but that does not mean we should not analyze, because what happens is your act of analysis are trying to predict basically creates your pillars of your thought process, right? And when events happen, you try to match how good or bad you are. And having said that, I mean, there are amazing macro readers also, some fantastic debt fund managers also, but every area is very complex. Expecting a micro cap guy to be good at large cap or a large cap guy to be equally good commentator on FX and international debt market. I mean, for entertainment, we can say a lot of things, but to have an expertise and give a solid take requires a different level of focus. So net, I think more as a retail investors are the people who do direct equity, who have India centric portfolios. um, like they are probably better off ignoring these international noises and at least not considering those are trying to factor in your choices. So I see there is a small section within macro caps also. I mean, I'm hearing this chatter for many weeks now कि अरे वो फिट का रेट कट होने वाला है तो ग्लोबल मार्केट बढ़ेगा तो इंडिया भी बढ़ेगा तो सब ठीक हो जाएगा. Now that may happen. I'm not even saying it will not happen, but I'm saying this surely does not have the kind of certainty which some people are assuming it to be done. I mean, market is never that straight and that linear. सो हाँ, पढ़ना चाहिए ग्लोबल न्यूज. उसको एनालिसिस से ज्यादा उसको मोर लाइक ए लर्नर और स्टूडेंट ऑफ, एंड वी विल डाई एज ए स्टूडेंट. नो वन विल एवर बिकम अ टीचर इन मार्केट, बट एज ए स्टूडेंट वी शुड ऑलवेज ट्राई टू रीड थ्रू. तो जैसे 3-4 इंटरेस्टिंग चीजें जो आपको सबको क्लियर होंगी. पिछले 3 साल से 2 बड़े वार जोन्स बन गए हैं. यूक्रेन रसिया, आई मीन इट इज नॉट अ डेडली वार जोन बट इट इज एन एक्टिव वार जोन. Israel Palestine is never dying. So these are the kind of news which used to move markets, and markets have adjusted. So they have just redrawn the world map in their mind. So that's where the switch from unknown unknowns to known unknowns to known knowns happens, right? So unknown, uh, known unknowns is what you hedge for, right? So we all know that we will die, and that's why we take insurance. Only thing is we don't know when will it happen, right? Similarly, we all know that, I mean, at least the big fund managers know that any big events can happen. So some of them try to take extreme put protections for major gap downs, etc., right? So any risk which you know, but you don't know the magnitude or the frequency or the timing of it, you can try to hedge, but you cannot do planning for unknown unknowns. And then the then war, if it becomes known knowns, it's like, हाँ आपको पता है, आप सुबह उठे, रसिया यूक्रेन लड़ रहा है, इजराइल पैलेस्टाइन लड़ रहा है, तब वो न्यूज कुछ इम्पैक्ट करती ही नहीं है. पहले न्यूज आती थी ना कि इजराइल ने ईरान के ऊपर, अभी ठीक है, इवन इफ इट वाज ए symbolic attack from both sides, more for optics than for any damage, still those news are not moving. Now if we follow markets, obviously we will understand that switch, right? So our sense of anxiety will come down, especially the people who trade index options or more into large cap kind of a thing. Macro cap investors, उनको क्या फर्क पड़ता है, उनको अपनी कंपनी में ही अगर वो 99% दिमाग लगाएंगे तो बाकी कुछ फर्क ही नहीं पड़ता है. तो from that perspective, yes, we should keep on, because then you start relating. So I call it time in market. I mean, everyone calls it time in market. And what it does is, मैं इस पे एक प्रिंस ऐसे फनी सा इंसिडेंस बताता हूँ. तो लॉट ऑफ, आई मीन, आई एम नॉट ट्राइंग टू डू जेंडर स्टीरियोटाइपिंग, बट I mean, it probably is not very controversial to say that females probably don't follow cricket as much as male do in India, right? So including my wife. So when post marriage I was trying to explain her integrity of cricket, and obviously she knows that much of a cricket to probably watch it for few hours, but won't ever know to the extent where some of us cricket aficionados try to follow, like कि काउंटी में 1973 में इस मैच में ये हुआ, those level of following, right? So you try to explain, no matter how much time you spend, like you spend like 20 hours, 30 hours, ये ऑफ स्पिन होती है, लेग स्पिन होती है, बैक हैंड ये होता है, फ्रंट हैंड ये होता है, लोअर, मतलब you just do lot of classes, right? Concentrated classes over a period of 10 hours, 20 hours, 30 hours, constant talking, right? But can you just bring someone suddenly at equal to the person who is watching cricket for 3 years, 5 years? और उसका एक सिंपल से एग्जांपल देता हूँ. व्हेन वी बेसिकली कम इनटू अ लिविंग रूम एंड वी जस्ट स्नैप थ्रू द टीवी एंड वी जस्ट सी कि बांग्लादेश ने 230 फॉर 232, वी स्नैप जजमेंट हमारा 2 सेकंड में निकल आएगा. ओह शिट, बांग्लादेश के 230 हो गए, 32 में लग रहा है इंडिया की लग गई. This entire statement and judgment doesn't even take 0.001 second. And that is happening because on the back of your 10 years into the cricket, right? अब ये सामने वाले को जितना भी समझा दो कि देखो ये इतना होता है, इसकी वजह से प्रोबेबिलिटी है, अब यहाँ से 6 है, वो जजमेंट आता नहीं है. सो एनीवे, क्रिकेट से वापस आते हैं. तो मार्केट में वी शुड ऑलवेज रीड ऑल बिग फैक्टर्स ऑल द टाइम, but also have the ability to do nothing most of the times. So from that perspective, yes, we should follow. ये कहना कि हम यूएस के बारे में पढ़ेंगे नहीं, वो क्या हो रहा है, वो भी गलत है. बट ये सोचना कि यूएस की न्यूज के बेसिस पे हम एक्शंस लेंगे और विल ट्राई टू प्रेडिक्ट मार्केट, दैट इज इक्वली बैड आइडिया. प्रिंस, I abruptly stopped. Otherwise, I'll
Right,
end up
right, right.
talking and maybe
No, no,
some
no.
other speakers also.
No, no, perfect. And someone said he is trying to send a speaker request, Chacha Chaudhary uncle. I have sent you a request, so you can send an approve. So
His
Manoj,
name is
आपका
Taran
कोई सवाल?
Prince. So for 2 days in a row, we had midnight gossip spaces. So he was here yesterday. His name is Taran.
ओके
So let's see.
ओके ओके हाँ तो वही मैंने रिक्वेस्ट भेजा है नॉट श्योर आजकल पता नहीं यार ट्विटर ने क्या चेंज कर दिया रिक्वेस्ट का बड़ा इशू हो रहा है मनोज जी आपका कोई क्वेश्चन या कुछ है
जी प्रिंस भाई नमस्ते, निकेश भाई नमस्ते, संदीप सर नमस्ते, कैसे हैं सर?
मैं बढ़िया हूँ सर. आप बताइए.
सिर्फ बढ़िया नहीं सर, एक्चुअली सर रियली मतलब आपके लिए हेड्स ऑफ है. आप इतना अच्छा नॉलेज और
मनोज सर,
इतने मतलब
छोटी सी
मनोज
रिक्वेस्ट है.
भाई
सर
छोटी
मनोज
सी रिक्वेस्ट है. छोड़
ये
दीजिए.
अवॉइड
सर
करते
सर
हैं यार मतलब कभी पर्सनली
ओके
मिलो ना
आई
तब करना
अप्रिशिएट इट, बट लेट्स नॉट डू इट प्लीज.
ओके
कोई
सर, नो
थैंक यू.
क्वेश्चन हो तो
प्रॉब्लम.
थैंक यू.
बताएं सर
थैंक यू सर.
सर एक्चुअली मेरा क्वेश्चन दो थे सर. फर्स्टली, कितने परसेंट कितने बीपीएस रेट कट आने से मार्केट के लिए अच्छा होगा? सेकंड बस, यूएस सिलेक्शन में ट्रम्प या कमला जी, जिनमें दोनों में से कौन जीतने से इंडिया के प्रोस्पेक्ट से अच्छा होगा और मार्केट के प्रोस्पेक्ट से?
Okay. First of all, I wish ki I can give you a solid answer, and no matter what I do, I'll end up looking foolish tomorrow. बट अभी मैंने एक ट्वीट आपको यहाँ पे पेस्ट की है. सो वी कैन ऑलवेज ट्राई टू सी अ डेटा. सो अगर आप लोग उसको कमेंट्स में देखेंगे, दिस आई ट्वीटेड yesterday also. I mean, obviously copied data from somewhere and with the source written there. तो आप इसमें देखिए कि जब भी वो 25 बिप्स का कट से स्टार्ट हो रहा है, मार्केट डिड वेल. मार्केट एज इन S&P 500, विच इज यूएस इक्विवेलेंट ब्रॉड इंडेक्स ऑफ लार्ज कैप्स. It did well. So you start with 25, it does well, but you try to start with the 150, it doesn't do well, because then market often sees that maybe Fed is seeing some underlying weakness which we cannot see. Otherwise, what is the rush? Now this is history, but history of what? 12 cycles doesn't mean 13th will be same. So मेरा पर्सनल मानना है, सिंस यू आर आस्किंग एंड आंसर करने में क्या जाता है, बट 25 और 50 उससे ज्यादा नहीं फर्क पड़ता है. कमेंटिंग और उसके बाद के स्टेटमेंट और मार्केट की पोजीशनिंग पे डिपेंड करता है, वन वे अनदर. इतना ह्यूज ऑप्शन ट्रेड्स लगी रहती हैं, शॉर्ट कवरिंग होगी, वन साइड होगा, कुछ ना कुछ तो मूव्स आते हैं. Don't get surprised if it is a non-event. If I have to really pin down on the probability, I'll probably see it as a non-event. Nothing Fed will do today to spark a rally or a crash. For sure, crash के लिए तो बड़ा सिंपल सा है. You can always talk it up. अगर शाम तक गिरता है तो सुबह फेड के भी 12 फेड हेड्स हैं डिफरेंट उसके डिफरेंट बोर्ड्स के. तो उसमें से कुछ बुलिश रहते हैं, कुछ बेरिश रहते हैं. सो दे टैक्टिकल नजिंग वो करते रहते हैं. तो अगर मार्केट्स बहुत शार्प फॉल होगा तो कल सुबह कोई कवरिंग स्टेटमेंट्स दे देगा कि ही डिडंट मीन इट दैट वे टाइप्स. तो वो हैंड होल्डिंग चलती रहती है उनकी. बहुत ज्यादा ऐसा कुछ ड्रामेटिक नहीं होने वाला है कि हमें कल सुबह उठ के सरप्राइज होगा कि हाउ डिड वी नॉट एंटिसिपेट. सो दैट्स द शॉर्ट ऑन द टुडेज एक्शन, राइट. एंड ओवर ए लॉन्गर पीरियड ऑफ टाइम वो ऑब्वियसली डिपेंड्स, राइट. और दूसरा, इन टर्म्स ऑफ रिपब्लिकन्स वर्सेस डेमोक्रेट्स, नाउ दैट्स एन इंटरेस्टिंग टेक. Luckily, it's about US, not India, so I can afford to say few things without risk of being trolled, irrespective of what I say. So, 2-3 things, बिल्कुल मनोज जी, बिल्कुल thumb rule. Republicans are perceived to be closer to the business, especially brick and mortar style of businesses, old style of businesses. So when Republicans come, all else equal, and which is never equal, the Russell 5000 does better than Nasdaq, because the policies will be more those old style of businesses friendly. So the oil and gas industry, fracking, mining, small businesses, red estates, Midwest estates, those kind of policies. Even otherwise also, Republicans are perceived to be more business friendly. Democrats are considered to be more socialist. They, for a long period, in fact, Democrats around 50-60 years back, it was just opposite. So that's the beauty. So right now, Democrats are considered to be very pro diversity and pro blacks and all that. Hardly like 70-80 years back, and a lot of people, I mean, I see Dr. Vismaya here and she might know about Confederate wars. In Confederate War, basically it was the reverse. So anyway, not going too much on US politics. As on date, Democrats are considered to be little socialist, borderline going towards those welfare kind of a thing, and Republicans are considered to be the pro-business. So all else equal, markets should probably rally a little bit on back of Republican action. In fact, many big hedge fund managers have actively said that they see repeat of Democrat as a risk to the market. But at the same time, it is very complicated. Life is never easy. मनोज भाई, सो क्या है कि जो ग्लोबल वेल्थ है उसमें भी दो थिंक टैंक हैं. So at the risk of looking like adding to the gossip, because I'm sure many people won't agree, but there is a segment which believes, and I'm now talking about India specific, that India plus Israel, which is Jews lobby, and India Gujarati lobby, plus obviously hardliners in USA, plus Dubai. So these four were considered to be very strong business nexus during Trump regime. And there is a section in market which believes if Trump re-wins, obviously, I mean, most people will probably agree with a little understanding of international that Republicans at margin will be better to India than Democrats, because Democrats are always little more pro-Pakistan and pro current Indian dispensation kind of a thing. I'll not, spend too much time on there. On the other hand, Democrats are always backed by the kind of old rich money, which is pension funds, wealth funds, endowments, which are considered to be very liberal. So it is little bit of that. I mean, by the way, New York and California, both two money hubs are blue states. Blue states, Manoj bhai, is basically Democrats जीतते हैं. And this is, I'm just saying for fun. Please don't. I'm not even claiming to be an expert, right? जितना मेरा superficial knowledge है वो बता रहा हूँ आपको. So these two states are blue states, and Republicans are obviously red states. तो इवन टेक्नोलॉजी एंड न्यूयॉर्क, जो कि दोनों काफी डायमेंशनली अपोजिट है, तो न्यूयॉर्क और कैलिफोर्निया की जो थॉट प्रोसेस है वो काफी डिफरेंट है, बट ऑन दिस मैटर दे आर सेम. बट विद इन दैट, रिपब्लिकन्स आर एंटी रिन्यूएबल्स, एंटी टेक्नोलॉजी, एंटी बिग कंपनीज, राइट. तो जनरली ये परसेप्शन होता है कि वो आएंगे तो फेसबुक को कंट्रोल करेंगे, स्पेशली जहां पे ये बहुत लिबरल लॉबीज बैठ चुकी हैं उन सब कंट्रीज में, वो सब कंपनीज में. तो ओवरऑल डेमोक्रेट्स आर कंसीडर्ड टू बी लेस मार्केट फ्रेंडली और बिजनेस फ्रेंडली देन रिपब्लिकन्स. बट रिवर्स क्या है कि ट्रम्प बीइंग सच एन एसेंट्रिक पर्सन, ही सेज सो मेनी फनी थिंग्स, राइट. Often he doesn't follow up with action, so he will immediately start saying, bashing China. He will do deglobalization, what we call, I mean, probably more tariffs, demand more things from Europe. So all those things will always keep markets on the toe. So, and he very openly embraces what he calls America first kind of a thing. So America being the sole power for good 30-40 years, preached, advocated globalization of thought process, what you call basically the globalist, right? The people who say countries do not matter, we have to think at a world scale. But Trump is basically reversing that. So that is obviously anti-market, right? Because जितना भी global trade में frictions आएगा, उतना global economy पे प्रेशर आएगा, तो वो है. तो बड़ी सारी कंपीटिंग फोर्सेस हैं. मनोज भाई, स्ट्रेट लाइन आंसर नहीं है इसका कि ऐसा होते ही बहुत तगड़ा रैली करेगा. तो ये सारे डिस्कशन मार्जिन्स में हैं, एंड नो वन नोज व्हाट विल हैपन इन मार्च एंड जून. तो इंटरेस्ट के लिए सब जानना अच्छा है, बट अगेन इसके बेसिस पे कोई हार्ड एनालिसिस या एक्शनेबल यूजुअली बनते नहीं है.
So, Sandeep bhai, is there anything to read between the lines when Elon Musk shared that tweet wherein the hedge fund billionaire John Paulson, right? So he made a statement that he'll pull out the money if Kamala Harris, or I mean, if I'm not mistaken on the name, wins the election. And secondly, he also cited that Warren Buffett has already accumulated so much of cash. So anything to read, or I mean, whatever
No,
we have.
obviously, I mean, there is nothing to read between the line. It is written on the top of a line and a bold paragraph, right? So Musk, 5 years back, was a visionary tech maverick tycoon. And he's on your chest. He's openly endorsed. I mean, endorsements are very normal in US elections, but no one does those caustic or polarizing kind of statements as Musk is doing, and there is a bit of history behind that. As you guys might know, once he acquired X, which is the Twitter, to basically replace the liberal stronghold and to bring it back to the right side, Democrats constantly attacked, including undoing of his famous CEO package, right? Which because company was registered in Delaware, and I mean most of you would know that Tesla was not founded by Elon Musk. So original founders were ousted, and he created the company, he created the brand. So in a sense, he's founder, but not technical founder. So the company was never registered in California; it was registered in Delaware, and Delaware is always a pro Republican, pro Soros kind of a thing. तो ये सब यार प्रिंस क्या है सुनने में ये इंटरेस्टिंग गॉसिप सा लगेगा, but I'm very sure we'll quickly slip into an area where we should not. I mean, so far our spaces have been nice because we avoided, and even commenting on US politics will probably show our likings, and will basically will split us into camps. So इसलिए छोड़ देते हैं प्रिंस, उस पे बहुत नहीं
Right.
जाते हैं. किसी को डीएम पे डिस्कशन करना है इन प्राइवेट फोरम्स, प्राइवेट फॉर्म्स, आई एम हैप्पी टू डू दैट, बट आई डोंट थिंक आई वांट टू openly lay out my political inklings. I mean, I
नहीं
don't
नहीं
want to
बिल्कुल सही,
do that.
totally makes
And I
sense.
think price volume trader is saying, Arpit Goel is saying he wants to be on a speaker, and whether Mohit Bhai
यार
will
मैंने
also.
दोनों को, चाचा चौधरी को भी भेज दिए, उसको भी भेज दिए. अब पता नहीं ट्विटर का ग्लिच है, क्या इशू है, एक बार वो भी सेंड करें, मुझे दिख नहीं रही हैं.
Up,
और मीनवाइल यश रामका ने
Nikesh,
सर,
can you try? Nikesh, can you try to?
I'm trying. Yeah, I'm trying. So Prince Volume Trader is there. So there's like 4 requests. Prince Volume Trader, then
Prince नहीं,
Deepak.
price volume
कर दो
trader,
यार,
but
अप्रूव
ठीक है,
कर दो, कोई
अप्रूव
कोई
कर दो,
दिक्कत
सबको
नहीं
कर दो आप.
है, कोई दिक्कत नहीं है. एक यश रांका ने क्वेश्चन पूछा, संदीप भाई इज आस्किंग व्हाट अबाउट कमोडिटी आफ्टर द रेट कट, डू यू सी
So
एनी
commodities,
इम्पैक्ट?
see, classic economics 101 says lower rates are always inflationary, technically, at margin, which is obviously always good for real assets, including real estate and commodities. Now, this is 101, right? And 101 rarely works. So if there are competing factors, global recession, etc., then demand scenarios might create downward pressure. But all else equal, lower rates is always beneficial for commodities.
Right, thank you. So we take the speakers one by one. So Chacha Chaudhary or Chacha Uncle, whoever, sorry, I don't know the name. Yeah, you can unmute and speak. आवाज आ रही है संदीप भाई?
Hello.
Yeah, very much.
हाँ जी, बताएं सर. आई थिंक उनकी नहीं आ रही है. सो लक्ष्मण जी आप बताएं. अभिषेक.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah, Abhishek, go ahead, please.
Yeah. So, Sandeep, I've been following US politics, and one observation, personal observation of mine is in the history of US, while there was a female candidate in the past in 1872, and then 2016 was Hillary Clinton, and 2020 Kamala Harris has come, but the likely of winning of female candidate has been very low. So, and that is like, it can be wrong this time, but I think, saying Elon Musk tweet supporting Trump, the likely of winning Trump is higher. What is your opinion on this?
मेरी ओपिनियन है, बट फॉर नॉट पब्लिक कंजम्पशन. बट इसमें मैं इसको जानते हैं, मैं हमेशा हर चीजें, वर्ल्ड की हर चीज फॉलो करता हूँ विथ एन इनक्विजिटिव माइंड रादर देन ट्राइंग टू गेट इनटू द जजमेंट, राइट? तो मेरे लिए सबसे ज्यादा कि if we have the ability to read Huffington Post and Breitbart both together, which is to say pre 2019, if you can watch G News and Times now, NDTV together, then, and see, luckily we don't have skin in the game. I mean, I'm not a US citizen, so I mean, it doesn't matter. We can afford to hear both sides. तो उस तरीके से फॉलो करिए. पर्सनली मुझे नहीं लगता कि जेंडर इज सच अ बिग फैक्टर राइट नाउ. आई मीन इट, इफ एनीथिंग इट कैन प्रॉब्ली appeal few people, but there are much bigger polarizations, including on the race, on the economics, on the
Hmm.
so many states, demographies, etc. I mean, gender is always a factor, but I personally feel it's not such a dominant factor that I simply rule out her winning this election. Not
Okay.
to say I feel that she is likely, but I'm just saying that
Ah,
I don't think that is a very strong factor.
because in my finance career, one of the gentlemen had told me that generally US people are not readily accepting the female president. And that has been true in 2016. Now again, when I reach out to him, he was saying
लक्ष्मण
this.
भाई, आप कहाँ पे हो इंडिया में इस समय, या वर्ल्ड में भी कहाँ पर हो?
मैं बैंगलोर में हूँ.
तो आप सच्चाई ये है ना कि आप बैंगलोर के बारे में भी आप नहीं बता सकते हो, और मैं लेट्स से आई एम
हाँ,
इन
करेक्ट
पुणे,
करेक्ट
तो
करेक्ट.
उनके बारे में भी नहीं. तो यूएस का वो भी वाया वाया जिसको बोलते हैं ना, उस
हाँ,
ओपिनियन के बेसिस पे डिस्कशन करने का कुछ फायदा नहीं है.
agree, agree, agree.
Countries are complex, societies are complex, every person has a different opinion. It's very tough to stereotype. तो छोड़ देते
True.
हैं.
Yeah, thanks, Sandeep. Thank you so much.
हेलो हेलो हेलो
बोलो बोलो सर, बोलो. हेलो के आगे बोलो सर.
संदीप सर, मेरा मैं पहली बार ट्विटर पे किसी से बात कर रहा हूँ, मतलब एक्स पे. तो मेरा सर एक क्वेश्चन है कि अगर ट्रम्प विन होते हैं तो इंडिया की इकोनॉमी को क्या फायदा होगा, और अगर जो फीमेल मैडम है वो जीतते हैं तो इंडिया की इकोनॉमी को क्या फायदा होगा?
सर ये ऑलरेडी बोल दिया, और प्रिंस इसके बाद ये वाले लाइन के क्वेश्चंस इनफैक्ट स्पेस भी बंद कर सकते हैं, बिकॉज इट विल
हाँ
एंड अप
यार,
बीइंग
थोड़ा
वो टाइम्स नाउ वाला शो हो जाएगा कि आपको क्या लग रहा है कौन जीतेगा.
सर उस टाइम में नहीं था.
नहीं, मैं आंसर कर रहा हूँ, मैं सर आपका आंसर कर रहा हूँ. आई एम जस्ट सेइंग कि उधर नहीं जाना चाहते हैं, बट इसका शॉर्ट आंसर ये है कि so there are two things. What will happen to the US markets? From that extension, what will happen to the global market? Second is what will happen to the global trade. And then the third factor is whether the new government, whether the continuation of Kamala Harris are Democrats or Republicans, right? Whether any of that will be more pro-India. So Republicans likely to be more pro-India. Republicans as in Trump, are likely to be more anti-global trade, and Republicans are likely to have a marginally stronger US economy. अब डिपेंडिंग अपॉन ये तीनों फैक्टर कितना उसका नेट इफेक्ट क्या आएगा इज एनीबडीज गेस. तो एकेडमिक क्यूरियोसिटी के अलावा मतलब दिस इज नॉट अ नो ब्रेनर आंसर फ्रैंकली, मैं तो बस इतना ही कह सकता हूँ. सो आई जस्ट गिव यू द डायमेंशन, बट I can try to give you look like an intelligent take, but then that will still be a dumb take because no one knows.
right. Arpit is next, and then Deepak.
Hello. Yeah, good evening, sir. Good evening, Sandeep
Yeah.
sir and all. Okay. Sir, actually, I was trying to study the VFX industry. So, where the company is generally showing the earnings growth of 25% to 30%.
Arpit, you
So,
are
I
very
just,
intelligent. At least try to link your question with the topic. You can
yeah,
be
I was,
very smart and say, since US elections are happening, what do you think will be the impact on VFX industry? Something like that. At least give
yeah, I
people
was just
excuse to discuss
wanted to
something
ask,
else.
what will be the Fed impact on this type of industry, and should it be compared with the IT?
Prince, क्या करें इस क्वेश्चन का?
सर आपका प्रेरोगेटिव है. मैंने
ठीक है, मैं सिंस इट इज नॉट स्टॉक स्पेसिफिक, मैं आपको बता दे रहा हूँ अर्पित, एंड सॉरी टू द पीपल if they have joined specifically for that topic, because this is off topic. So Arpit, I think we are first time talking, so I'm a parrot on this industry, so I'll use what I always say in more private forums, etc. So VFX, in my eyes, is very equivalent to the early IT model because it has the same components of onshore, offshore, cost arbitrage on back of some tech usage related R's, right? So जो basic premise है construct वो same है, but कुछ differences बहुत contrast है. पहला, IT is a much bigger industry, so much bigger TAM. VFX also is a very big industry, but nothing compared to the IT, because VFX, in other words, can be seen as a subsection of IT itself, because in the end of the day you're still using technology tools, so it's not like VFX is totally different thing. A lot of people can simply argue that VFX is nothing but a small mini segment within IT, let's say 2-3% kind of a thing within entertainment. Only thing extra is it has a creativity element, which is usually not there. I mean, you are not supposed to be creative. I mean, business wise, yes, smarter, yes, but nothing like a creative Java architect, right? But in VFX, you are supposed to have a creative layer, which as of now is primarily sitting in places like LA, mostly LA or New York or London. Because if you are talking about global projects, you are talking about movies which Disney's make. Naturally, a youngster who does not have a global exposure, does not understand the sensibilities of Western market, cannot create a project like that. I'm talking about the creative aspect of it. But what India can offer and is offering is basically उस पूरी process की जो जिसको post production work बोलते हैं, उसके उस एलिमेंट को जो कि रिपीटेबल है, जिसमें जजमेंट नहीं है, वो यहाँ पे होता है, राइट? एंड दैट इज ऑब्वियसली हैपनिंग फॉर सम टाइम. Now suddenly, why so many of us are discussing? Because it started with the listing of Phantom, like 18 months back or maybe 15 months back. Phantom आया. A lot of people like me simply thought of it as some kind of an event management or ad. मैंने तो ध्यान भी नहीं दिया. And stock was very popular. A lot of people understood it very early. They rode it all the way to 200 to 600, followed by Basilic and VFX. That is when I started tracking it. I built big positions on all three. Right now, as we speak, just to disclose my positions, I have exited Basilic and Phantom. Those who know me and probably follow me more closely already know it, so nothing like a new information here. Holding my DigiCore position and trying to add one more. But coming back to the VFX, so VFX को चलिए मेरे पे बहुत लंबा मेरा आंसर हो जाता है, मैं शॉर्ट में फास्ट में बुलेट में बोलने की कोशिश करता हूँ. तो VFX में बेसिकली पहले लॉन्ग फॉर्मेट, जिसको मूवीज या OTT आप बोल सकते हो, फिर बोलते हैं एड और गेमिंग. गेमिंग में इंडिया की VFX की कैपेबिलिटीज बहुत मिनिमल है. एड में इंडिया में अभी जो एक रिसेंटली लिस्ट हुई है कंपनी, दैट इज द ओनली लिस्टेड एक्सपोजर. ऑब्वियसली अनलिस्टेड में और भी प्लेयर्स हैं. And movie is what they primarily do. Movie as in long format. So movies as well as OTTs. और ये component बहुत ज्यादा बढ़ा है. इसके जो current work हो रहा है वो चेन्नई और पुणे यहाँ से हो रहा है. अब इसमें भी हमें इंटरनेशनल वर्सेस डोमेस्टिक की बात करनी है. डोमेस्टिक के अंदर भी मुंबई एंड सदर्न इंडिया. तो इंटरनेशनल इज ऑब्वियसली ऑल हॉलीवुड, और वो सारा का सारा काम होता है आपका LA से. बट उनके नियर शोर सेंटर हैं. अगर आप IT में कोई यहाँ पे होगा तो दे विल अंडरस्टैंड दिस लैंग्वेज. सो नियर शोर इज बेसिकली सेम टाइम जोन, बस थोड़ी सी लेसर कॉस्ट लोकेशन. सो दैट इज मॉन्ट्रियल, कनाडा. और वहां पे टैक्स रिबेट्स भी हैं. सो वन ऑफ द लिस्टेड कंपनीज वेंट देयर. इनफैक्ट 2 of them, few opened. One of them actually focused on the Europe side also. तो जो भी ये slump आया था, I'm assuming Arpit you are following companies little closely and that's why you're asking. That was
Yes.
not AI hit. It was a Hollywood strike hit which ended in December. Scripts started getting approved in February and March. Productions are slowly getting finalized. So first set of new work started coming only from June. That means most of the market is already, the people who understand business is already expecting a sweep on H1, as in a subdued H1. So the trick is to see what will happen in H2. Which of the companies or whether all of them will start reporting big projects win as we start H2 right from October, November. So anybody who has a constructive view is minimum holding it till summers, because that's where so many times stocks have a tendency to do the bulk of the run up at the start of the business cycle turnaround, right? So some of the people are of the view that whatever is likely to happen in next 12 months, stock price might catch it in next 3 to 4 months starting from October and November. Obviously it is anybody's guess, but some solid news flow has to come. So I'm surely not of the camp, and because of my size of positions and my extra interest, with some sincerity I can say the slump is not because of AI. and does not mean AI cannot disrupt, but I feel it's many years away. Many of those factors I have mentioned in some spaces in past, so I won't repeat much. So that's what it is. अर्पित बाकी DM पे अलग से पूछ सकते हैं. I don't want to bore entire audience on this.
Okay. So one more question, like if you have to compare all the three companies, so what factors you will consider, like if you want to pick one? Let's say we compare on different parameters, EV by EBITDA, some companies by market cap to sales.
नहीं EV by EBITDA नहीं है, इसको EV by EBITDA की बात ही नहीं करेंगे क्योंकि इनका डेट नहीं होगा, तो EV by EBITDA की जरूरत नहीं है. जो क्लासिक IT के होते हैं, बिलिंग रेट्स, राइट, कितने एम्प्लॉइज हैं, कितना रेवेन्यू है, या सिंपली सेल्स का मल्टीपल दे लीजिए आप स्टार्टिंग पॉइंट. आपको मार्जिन ये मान के चलना है कि तीनों मोटा मोटा सेम पे बैठेंगे. अगर एक एक्सेप्शनली हाई है, सो वी हैव टू रिवर्स थिंक कि हाउ कैन वन रिपोर्ट मच हायर देन द टू, राइट. या तो दो अंदर रिपोर्ट कर रहे हैं या एक इन्फ्लेट कर रहा है, एंड इट इज एनीबॉडीज गेस हु वाज इन्फ्लेटिंग, एंड दैट्स व्हाई दे स्टार्टेड रिपोर्टिंग दिस लम. इनफैक्ट ऑल तीनों ने किया है, और उसका रीजन भी है क्योंकि एक्सपेंसेस आपके जो एम्प्लॉई हैं, यू डोंट वांट टू लूज योर क्रिएटिव, स्पेशली इंटरनेशनल हायर. सो अ लॉट ऑफ दीज कंपनीज विल रिपोर्ट प्रॉब्ली लोअर मार्जिन्स, बट दैट इज वन ऑफ, यू डोंट assign a franchisee value based on a slum period, right? तो P by S, P by E is a good enough. स्पेसिफिकली जो H2 के रिजल्ट थे उसमें लोगों ने कैश फ्लो, जो सीजन इन्वेस्टर्स थे उसने कैश फ्लो जोर देखने की कोशिश की, क्योंकि pretty much all three companies either hid on purpose or they were just sloppy investor communicators, which market didn't like, and that's why pretty much all the stocks were beaten right, left, and center, because they were very quick to give sound bites on every positive international development. You follow all three companies' exchange announcement, you will realize that they kept on saying nice things between Jan and March, and come April and May, pretty much all three companies had a major cash challenge. Phantom luckily had a QIP, so they had cash in hand, they probably survived. Bashlik Digicore somehow are managing. So Digicore has an additional 50% revenue coming from the production, and that is probably keeping them alive. As an alive in a sense till the cycle turn around, and they're managing cash that way. तो जो उनका जो प्रोडक्शन बिजनेस है, that is not an inventory risk, so they are not going prime focus way or Suraj Badjatya production. These are called branded content, and this is for a limited audience here. This is not a secret which company very openly talks about, though anybody can guess it. So you go to their YouTube channel, Binge Fever, you can figure it out. So what they basically do is these are paid contents where the participants, it's like Shark Tank, right? So, I mean, I hope it is an open secret that judges pay to be on those shows. So, वो जिसको बोलते हैं branded content. तो उस content में you basically charge the participants and you make it free and you basically get it done on. So India में इसमें G पे तो कुछ कोई देखना नहीं चाहता है. Participants won't pay unless you are doing it on Colors or Jio, because that's the premium content platform right now. So Digicore has a good tie-up there, and that's one business which has a higher margin and a faster cash flow because you're upfront billing a lot of these guys. Unlike VFX में एक चीज और पे ध्यान रखना, all three companies, in fact entire VFX industry, and I'm ignoring the big houses like the unlisted the SRK company, देखिए Red Chillies, right? They are the biggest VFX company in India, along with the subsidiary of Prime Focus. देखिए मैं बात करते करते भूल ही गया, काफी लोगों को यहाँ पता होगा. They were supposed to do Nasdaq listing, so they are like 2,000-3,000 people वाला टाइप का जो है, वहां पे भी प्रेशर है, तो उनकी बात नहीं कर रहे हैं, और वो एटलीस्ट रेड चिलीज तो कभी लिस्ट नहीं होगा. बट द स्मॉलर VFX स्टूडियोज, दे बेसिकली डू द थर्ड पार्टी लाइक सबलेट वर्क. तो सबलेट वर्क में कैश फ्लो आपका हमेशा फंसेगा. तो इवन दो सोनी एंड CBS एंड स्टार ट्रेक ऑफ द वर्ल्ड इज पेइंग ऑन टाइम, the Indian vendors will get it not on time unless LA guys pay on time, and LA guys will always pay on time. No American enterprise delays the payments, except for the very abnormal period which industry just faced. So the cash flow challenges are not structural but more cyclical one-off. ये परमानेंट पेन नहीं रहेगा. यूएस में लॉ, कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स, बिलिंग वगैरह बहुत स्टैंडर्ड होती है. अब जब सामने वाली कंपनी बैंकरप्ट ही हो रही है तो वो सारे फ्लाउट करती ही चली जाएगी रिलेशनशिप बेसिस पे. तो ये सारा कैश फ्लो should probably improve in next 3 to 6 months, and revenue should accelerate from here. Does not mean every company will do well, so we have to obviously watch for the execution.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Arpit. So next is Deepak and then Shubham.
Yes, yeah. Good evening, संदीप सर, and thank you, Prince Bhai, for this space. सर संदीप सर, मुझे पूछना था कि जैसे अभी रेट कट स्टार्ट हो रहे हैं, तो सॉफ्ट लैंडिंग आपका मतलब क्या सिनेरियो प्रिडिक्ट करते हो कि सॉफ्ट लैंडिंग कंटिन्यू रहेगा? एंड सेकंड, व्हाट अबाउट दी एफआई फ्लो, क्योंकि एफआई फ्लो से ऑलरेडी इंडिया और इमर्जिंग मार्केट में इंक्रीज हो गया है, तो अभी ऑलरेडी वैल्यूएशन हाई है इंडियन मार्केट का, जैसे कि न्यूज में इतना चल रहा है. तो व्हाट डू यू एक्सपेक्ट कि वैल्यूएशन और स्ट्रेच होगा या फिर एफआई का पैसा कम आएगा?
I think Mohit Bhai has joined as a speaker, so I think he is surely more equipped, or at least equal or more equipped to answer this question.
प्रिंस
Mohit Bhai, आते ही
जैसे
आपको
आप
क्वेश्चन दे दिया मैंने.
नाइस डिफ्लेक्शन संदीप भाई. हाँ, फ्रंट फुट पे आके डिफ्लेक्ट था एकदम. हाँ,
नहीं नहीं नहीं, प्लीज प्लीज
नहीं
प्लीज
नहीं
हेल्प.
नहीं. दीपक यार देखो, ये जो रेट कट वेट कट है ना, सी मार्केट्स आर वेरी मैच्योर, so all of this has been already baked in. Okay, so the valuations that you see, particularly in US, are already expecting a 50 basis point rather than 25 today. So if it is 25, markets will be a bit disappointed, but they will still be jubilant because then they'll think that Fed is thinking that the economy is holding up. If it is 50, markets being markets, they will always think about, oh, it has been met, our expectations have been met, but is the Fed doing 50 because they think the economy is going towards, let's say, a lack of better word, hard landing. Although nobody knows what is hard and soft landing, these are like loaded words, right? So essentially, I think the key is to listen to Powell's commentary and how he talks about the rate cuts. I mean, not the current, but the future, and his view on the economy. My view is the markets will absolutely surprise you and go way higher from here into the Santa Claus rally. Because US market is, so if the rate cuts happen, which are going to happen, it will be a perfect Goldilocks situation that rates can only go one way, which is down. Economy is holding up, and if you turbo boost all of this, this is going to go to the sky. Now, what that means for India? यार इंडियन मार्केट को और कितना आगे ले जाओगे? मतलब इंडियन मार्केट इज ऑलरेडी इन द ईथर in terms of valuations, right? I mean, Sensex को छोड़ दें थोड़ा बहुत उसके अलावा, right? I mean, it's already in the ether, in my view, at least. I think it is good that the market cools off. Can't see any reason why it should go down from here. Yeah, I mean, and to be fair, I mean, US is US, so it is going to do what it's going to do. I mean, next focus is going to be after this what happens in the elections, and I mean, Prince, let's talk through the US elections. If I mean, I have certain views, I can share that as questions come along. Does that answer your question, Deepak? I think तुम्हारा ही question था, right?
Yes. It was very comprehensive, detailed answer. If Prince Bhai allow me, एक और एक क्वेश्चन पूछ सकता हूँ क्या?
पूछो यार, पूछो इतना.
हाँ संदीप सर, ये है कि अभी जैसे कुछ हमने रिसेंटली ट्रेंड देखा है कि एसएमई में भी काफी एफआईएस डायरेक्टली इन्वेस्ट कर रहे हैं, जैसे कि जेपी मॉर्गन, बैंक ऑफ अमेरिका, बीएनपी पैरिबास. तो आप लोग को ये ट्रेंड क्या लगता है कि मतलब ये मतलब
That's
ऐसा तो
not
होता
FII.
नहीं है?
No FII would like to. I mean, especially the names which you're saying, they will not typically hold Indian SME. That's client flow, P notes bought on behalf of some end clients, which might be a Mauritius fund. So think of these as execution trades, not as the holding trades.
Okay, got
I
it.
mean, without knowing full details, I can try to dig deeper. But when we say FIIs, there are certain funds which are based out of Dubai and Mauritius. For right and wrong purposes, they are very active, so they are obviously valid legal FIIs. The better quality, or at least the more sought after FIIs, are in the form of some of the pension funds and institutions endowment. Especially MIT is very active, and that there is a very specific reason of why MIT is active, because the the one of the person involved in that fund has some liking to Indian microcap. So this is more like an idiosyncratic reason why MIT fund is, and that's just not microcaps. I mean, they have invested in a lot of main board, very small companies. So not SME, but microcaps kind of a company. But there is no wider trend to say that FII's interest in Indian SME is increasing. I mean, it is there. It is legally possible, unlike Indian institutions, which one don't invest and technically can't invest also. I'm talking about the mutual funds and the EPFO of the world. That's what I mentioned in face to face with Vivek also. That it's not even allowed as part of their mandate. The international, most of these funds have much more flexible mandate. Most of it, I mean, obviously, their pension funds will not be allowed to dwell into very small microcaps purely because of size constraints, etc. But a lot of other financial institutions have much more open mandate than Indian financial institutions.
Yes, thank you, Sandeep sir.
Thanks, Deepak. So Shubham, you are
Hi,
next.
am I audible?
Yeah, go ahead.
हाँ, तो मैं थोड़ा मैक्रो इकोनॉमिक्स समझने की कोशिश कर रहा हूँ, न्यू भी हूँ। तो जस्ट कोविड से अब तक अगर फेड रेट्स मतलब जैसे अभी 5% के अराउंड है और उनके देश में 1% के आसपास नॉर्मल होता है, तो फेड ने रेट्स रेस किए थे कोविड के टाइम पे इन्फ्लेशन कॉम्बेट करने के लिए, और उनका नॉर्मल इन्फ्लेशन अगर 1-2% है होता है तो 5-6% है 3-4 साल से, अब जाके 3% के आसपास हुआ है। तो इसलिए नेक्स्ट 2-4 ईयर्स में रेट्स विल बी कट ग्रेजुअली। मतलब अगर इन्फ्लेशन था और लोगों के पास पैसा ज्यादा था इसलिए प्राइसेस वेर हाई, तो उन्होंने रेट्स बढ़ाए ताकि टाइट हो चीजें। बट देन व्हाई डिड मार्केट गो अप उस टाइम पे? मतलब व्हाई डिड फाइनेंशियल एसेट्स इन्फ्लेट रेदर देन डिफ्लेट? और ऑल्सो सेकेंडली मतलब अगर इसका ऐसा रीजन है कि जो रेट्स बढ़ाए उसका असर अब किक इन होने वाला है कि पैसे खत्म होने वाले हैं लोगों के पास, इसलिए रेट कट्स होने वाले हैं, तो इसका असर किक इन होने में अभी टाइम लगेगा। तो अभी लोगों के पास पैसे कम रहेंगे तो मार्केट नीचे जाएगा, दैट्स व्हाई करेक्शन इज लाइकली। ऐसा इज दिस थ्योरी करेक्ट, या इसमें क्या फ्लॉ है अगर आप बता सके?
प्रिंस मैं लूं?
हाँ यार, please go ahead.
Well explained, but the only issue is things are not that linear. ठीक है? There are various layers of complexities that are overlapping. So of course, when the rates when COVID hit, the idea was, well, you need to keep the economy float. Nobody knows what's going to happen. Nobody knows how this is going to go about. So a lot of money, both in terms of liquidity, i.e. bringing the borrowing to like unlimited extent, and fund rates were brought to zero, which were already not too high from zero, to be fair, right? So, and plus unlimited liquidity and unlimited bond buying was started by Fed, right? So that injected a lot of liquidity. Plus a lot of free money was also given to basically say, agar the job chali gayi hai to ye kar sakte ho, wo kar sakte ho, all that. Now what that meant was economy started propping up, and at some point in time, of course, the vaccines came, started opening up, and plus another thing that was happening was commodities, right? So commodities, as you may have seen, started going through the roof, right? Not just the oil prices not so much, but beyond that, commodities started going through the roof, whether we're talking of electricity prices or other commodities driven by let's say the disruptions across the world, whether that was COVID related and other things. Now of course Fed came out and said it's all transitory, so they had a bit of a red nose, wherein they came out and said, oh, it's not transitory and we will have to do something. Now of course what they are doing now is being ultra cautious on how things are going. They have been able to control. Now the thing about rate cuts is it's the only tool, but it's a blunt tool. What that means is when you cut the rates, the effect is a bit lagging. It's not a sharp tool कि आज rate cut की और कल inflation ठीक हो गया, because it takes time to percolate through the economy, right? So it is about 1 to 2 quarters of a lag. So they kept increasing the rates, and at some point in time, they thought that they have done enough. That economy has started to cool down, and inflation. I mean, it was anyways non-sustainable. Uh, Generally, देखो Fed का target रहता है. Fed का target is neutral, which means we are going to keep the interest rates at around 2, and that should be the inflation as well, because some inflation is healthy. It shouldn't be zero like it's in Switzerland and Japan, which means there is almost no growth. And 2% inflation, 2% rates essentially is target neutral. So that's where they want to get to. People think it's a new era and above 2 is fine. I think what's going to happen is, anyways, you may have seen Fed is not leading the rate cut, but it is following the rate cut. I think they'll try and get on the front foot now. But what you have to always think is, I mean, they are not idiots, for the lack of better word here. I mean, these guys are leading the world and they know what they're doing. Just that, of course, and their decisions are data backed. Just that sometimes things can take unwanted shape. So I think in that sense, these things are going to go ahead in terms of rate cuts. We shall see. But I mean, rate cuts पे इतना ध्यान मत दियो यार. I mean, this is a scenario that has already been done and dusted. Markets are looking for next triggers. Now, it has got to happen, whether it's 25, 50, and the pace, all that can be questioned. But my expectation is by the end of next year, we will be more closer to 3% rates, which is almost 2.25% cuts between now and then, now, sawa saal mein. So that's quite a bit, right?
सॉरी, बस एक फॉलो अप थोड़ा सा इस पे कि ये इस तरह की न्यूज जो पढ़ते रहते हैं कि वॉरेन बुफे इज सिटिंग ऑन लाइक बिग पाइल ऑफ कैश टू बाय द डिप दैट इज गोइंग टू हैपन, और इस तरह की न्यूज को किस तरह से लेना चाहिए? हु इज गेटिंग दीज न्यूज पब्लिश्ड? क्या मतलब इंटेंट है इन चीजों का? इफ यू कैन इलैबोरेट अ लिटिल.
यार शुभम, इन सब चीजों से दूर रहोगे तो अच्छा रहेगा, बिकॉज दैट इज व्हाट इज कॉल्ड नॉइज इन द मार्केट. कल को ये भी न्यूज आ जाएगी कि वॉरेन बफे ने पूरा पैसा डिप्लॉय कर दिया है. So I think you should avoid, or if you can't avoid, just take it with a pinch of salt कि वो कर रहा है जो उसे करना है. I think you have to follow your own judgment on what you want to do, based on your circumstances, based on your capital, based on your goals, more importantly. तुम्हारी एज, तुम्हारे circumstances, तुम्हारे goals, right? बाकी तो यार, and unfortunately social media has made the world too noisy. And the art is removing the noise and just focusing on the key things.
Got it, sir. Thank you.
Sandeep bhai, you want to add anything, or shall we take the next question?
Next question is good. But actually, just to add on the almost the end thing which Mohit bhai said, we should surely follow, uh, but we should not get bogged down with what is happening on a live basis. That is often the suboptimal way to learn things. If we are really so keen to understand US markets and assuming we don't know yet, then we are better off spending time to read books which give us a good 30-40 year view on what happened, uh, during Volcker regime, then during Greenspan regime, and then GFC, and then subsequent, European debt crisis, etc. So it's a very interesting area. Knowing it will help a lot of people to anticipate big asset class move, क्योंकि लॉन्ग हिस्ट्री है. अब 20-30 साल की जब इन्वेस्टमेंट होराइजन की बात करते हैं तो मैक्रो फैक्टर्स मैटर करता है. इंडिया में स्पेशली पोस्ट कोविड, इवन प्री कोविड ऑल्सो, luckily or not so luckily, macro has become less important in recent years, right? But that will always not be the case. If war happens, any major dislocation happens, any major FX moves happen, तो हमारी जितनी भी लोकल थ्योरी है वो साइड हो जाएगी, और ग्लोबल मैक्रो थीम्स विल बिकम डोमिनेंट. एंड इफ वी हैव दिस एटीट्यूड कि हम उसको देखेंगे ही नहीं बिकॉज इट डजंट मैटर मोस्ट ऑफ द टाइम्स, then probably will be ill-equipped to react to such a move. So from that perspective, yes, we should follow. But we should try to study a longer horizon than trying to understand आज क्या हुआ और इसका कल क्या impact होगा.
Purnama. Right. So next is Shri Bhagwan, I guess. Yeah, Shri Bhagwan Srivastav.
हेलो
जी बताएं.
हेलो यस सर कैन यू
आपकी
हेलो
वॉइस ब्रेक हो रही है. Can you try again?
हाँ जी सर अभी आ रही है
जी
आवाज
जी बताएं.
सर गुड इवनिंग मेरा क्वेश्चन ये था सर कि जैसे अभी ऑलमोस्ट ये सर्टेन है कि यूएस फेड इज गोइंग टू कट रेट सर तो इसको कंसीडर करते हुए सर डोंट यू थिंक कि मतलब हमारे सेंट्रल बैंक आरबीआई को भी रेट कट करना पड़ेगा तो मतलब इफ दे मतलब इफ आरबीआई इज फोर्स टू कट द रेट तो इन्फ्लेशन का सिनारियो हमारी कंट्री में अब जो कि अभी भी कंट्रोल में नहीं है जो है तो वो बढ़ेगा तो इसका इंडियन इकोनॉमी में मतलब क्या इम्पैक्ट आप देख रहे हैं और बैंकिंग सेक्टर पे स्पेशली
Right. So Mohit, Sandeep, anybody wants to take this?
यार इतना ध्यान मत दो फेड पे उसको जो करना है करने दो I think macros impact, but not so much like Kia. So all that will happen. I mean, I'm sure there are people with way more understanding of this than any of you or any of, I mean, including me, of course. Looking at this, unfortunately, macro is not. This happens, and that will. I mean, there are multiple impacts. Of course, rate cut. I mean, India may do it, may not do it, but 0.25 या 0.5 cut से, I mean, Indian economy is already at a boom, right? कितना ही फर्क पड़ जाएगा and anyways going ahead, I mean, it's a what do you call festive season, right? For next couple of months in India, so things will anyways be on a tear in terms of people going out and spending money and spending, of course, their time and whatnot. So I don't think so. It makes a lot of difference, but yeah, I mean that's where we are.
Sandeep bhai.
I think I'll echo what Mohit bhai said, but just to add, out of compulsion and bad habit, even if answer is complete, US is at 5.5 or 5, right? And वहाँ से they have the scope, if no accidents happen, to probably cut down it by 2%, even maybe 2.5% in next 18 months, 24 months kind of a scenario, right? India is at the lower end of its long-term average, even though recently there was this amazing news, Mohit bhai, whether you saw it or not, that India 50-year government yield came below 70. So it's like a flat curve, which basically shows that a lot of institutions, I mean, only big institutions will buy 50-year bond, right? They are thinking of India slowly migrating towards, let's say, Korea and, South Korea, not North Korea, that style of a thing where the lower inflation will become a norm as we move from, let's say, current per capita income to more towards $10,000 per capita income in next 15-20 days. So those kind of already, I mean, we never increased rate that much because we never printed that much of a note. So in a way, even if RBI becomes hell-bent on, being very loose having very loose monetary policy, even then they cannot afford more than 100 bips. Second thing is when they will cut the rates, it will make dollar little weak, and which makes rupee strong. And India is already facing the problem of a very strong rupee. I mean, they won't let it appreciate much more, right? We are not depreciating compared to other currencies. I mean, we are still okay compared to the dollar. So there are other consideration also. Short, I'll be very surprised if RBI does more than 50 bips in this cycle. And even that, if I have to guess, will probably be little back-ended or mid-ended than front-ended. Again, I run a risk of being, look like a fool trying to predict what will happen in 2-3 months. But let me still, venture a guess that RBI कुछ भी करे यार, वो 25 बिप्स के बाद वो उनको हाथ रोकना ही पड़ेगा, बिकॉज एफएक्स कंसिडरेशंस एंड लोकल डिपॉजिट रेट कंसिडरेशंस एक्सेट्रा विल मैटर. तो ये जो हम सोच रहे हैं कि यूएस में 1.5% रेट कट हो जाएगा अगले 12 महीने में, तो इंडिया भी उतना करेगा, वो शायद गलत एक्सपेक्टेशंस है. एटलीस्ट इंडियन बॉन्ड मार्केट नहीं एक्सपेक्ट कर रहा है. और दूसरी चीज है कि पिछले 6 महीने में क्या हुआ है, बिकॉज ऑफ दीज ग्लोबल बॉन्ड इंडाइसेस विच आर स्लोली एडिंग, तो बॉन्ड यील्ड वैसे ही इंडिया की लोअर है. अब उसके बाद उसमें कितना ही इम्पैक्ट पड़ेगा, तो आरबीआई के रेट अनाउंसमेंट से कुछ फर्क नहीं पड़ता है. वी शुड ऑल्सो अंडरस्टैंड दीज आर जस्ट सिंबॉलिक रेट्स. व्हाट मैटर्स इज द इफेक्टिव रेट, एंड दैट इज ऑलवेज hinged to 10-year गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया yield. दैट इन itself इज नॉट वेरी वेरी हाई. तो बहुत उसमें स्कोप नहीं है कि आप हेडलाइन रेट्स कम भी कर दिया आरबीआई ने तो इट वोंट ट्रांसलेट इनटू रियल रेट्स. और प्लस यहाँ से डिपॉजिट्स पे इतना प्रेशर है, तो बैंक्स क्या ही रेट वेट कट करेंगे लोन्स वोन्स का. So all in all, don't try to link US action with a straight Indian macro action.
सर मेरा एक छोटा सा डाउट था
हाँ.
सर, इफ यू परमिट.
अच्छा, उससे पहले मैं आपको एक चीज बोलूं. At least I can factually request you to reconsider your statement that India inflation is not under control. And let's keep politics on the side. I'm hoping you are not loaded and I'm not loaded. I mean, we may be loaded, but we are not discussing from loaded point.
No, sir. As per my understanding, sir, what RBI Act said, sir, says, sir, that inflation should be between 2 to 6%.
Yes.
And right now it's around 5.5,
हाँ, ठीक है.
if I
हाँ,
am
तो
not
वो
wrong.
जब तक उस बैंड के अंदर
तो
है.
जो मॉनेटरी पॉलिसी कमेटी को मैंडेट है, उससे मतलब वी आर वेल अबव. तो मेरा उस मतलब कॉन्टेक्स्ट में
नहीं,
क्वेश्चन था कि जनरली
agree, you
अगर
are a very learned person, you know the band and you are making a nuanced argument. उसमें मेरा ये है, you are right. I mean, what face they have to start cutting rate when inflation is touching your higher end of the band. But it is a allowed band. They are not having a target of 4%. They have a target of 2 to 6%. They can always justify it with the
2 to 6%,
हाँ.
विदिन बैंड
और
ओनली, सर.
दूसरा क्या है कि ये आप
तो
लेटेस्ट
देर
मंथ देख रहे होगे, एक रनिंग 12 मंथ्स देखोगे तो शायद कुछ और दिखेगा. बट इन जनरल मतलब करंट रिजीम हैज बीन वेरी fiscal prudent, right? Because of the politics of this country, we don't give this government credit. I mean, this government has failed us on so many fronts, but at least on one front they have done fantastic job. But purely because the current RBI governor and finance minister are not as intelligent as their president, preceding fellows. So probably sometimes we don't give the credits, and a lot of these actions were probably majburi than choices. But the reality is India is one of those top 20 countries which did fantastic fiscal management during COVID. And because of which we
हाँ,
never
yes, sir.
had a kind of
सर.
inflation which Western world saw.
Actually, I fully agree with you this statement, sir. But recently I was going through, sir, governor's last monetary policy statement. So where he was worried because 2 members were voted against this status quo. So he was worried about the inflation. Now in this scenario, when Fed is cutting the rate, so what my understanding says that the dollar will appreciate. And when dollar will appreciate, so मतलब rupee will automatically depreciate. जो कि अभी तक आरबीआई हैज डन ए गुड जॉब, मतलब इसको होल्ड करके रखा रुपी को, कैसे भी इंटरवेन करके.
वैसे
तो अब जब हमारा रुपी सर डेप्रिसिएट होगा, तो उस केस में अगर हम रेट कट नहीं करते हैं, तो मतलब कितना सस्टेन कर पाएंगे. मेरा वरी एक्चुअली वहां पे था सर, बिकॉज इन्फ्लेशन फ्रंट पे वी आर ऑलरेडी स्ट्रगलिंग. मतलब वी आर फाइन, बट वी आर जस्ट मतलब एबल टू मैनेज. वी आर नॉट इन कंफर्ट, मतलब कंफर्ट जोन. तो इस पे अगर आपका थोड़ा व्यू मिलेगा तो इट विल
एकेडमिक
बी
आंसर दे देता हूँ श्री भागवत जी. देखिए, मार्केट में कहा जाता है सबसे इजी काम है पैसा बनाना इक्विटी में. उसके बाद डेट ऑब्वियसली बिकम्स टफर एंड अफेक्ट्स द टफेस्ट मार्केट, कंसीडर्ड एक्सट्रीमली टफ. आई मीन यू विल ऑलवेज फाइंड सम 100 फनी थ्योरीज टू एक्सप्लेन व्हाट हैपेंड. सो कभी भी जो एक्सपेक्टेड मूव होता है वो होता नहीं है. बट कीपिंग दोज आउटकम्स असाइड, बिल्कुल इकोनॉमिक्स 101 कहती है आप इंटरेस्ट रेट गिराओगे और बाकी वर्ल्ड नहीं गिराएगा. थोड़ी देर के लिए हम ये मान लेते हैं कि यूरोप, इंडिया या ग्लोबल करेंसी बास्केट विल नॉट follow the pace of US purely because they don't have that margin. All else equal, dollar will depreciate and other currencies will appreciate. The reality is there will be other factors which may make eventual FX move slightly different. Maybe FX has already anticipated a lot of it, so it will be reversal of partial unwind and those things apart. But जो इकोनॉमिक्स की 101 है उसके हिसाब से, क्योंकि जो बेसिक इंटरेस्ट रेट पैरिटी का कॉन्सेप्ट होता है ना सर, कि जितना इंटरेस्ट रेट का डिफरेंशियल ज्यादा होगा उतना सो आपका सी ठीक है. एनीवे इसको यहाँ पे छोड़ देते हैं, बट आई कैन मेक आउट दैट यू फॉलो इकोनॉमिक्स क्वाइट वेल, so I don't think I have much to add on top of your understanding which you already have.
Okay, sir.
And pleasure talking to you.
Right.
So, thank you.
Sandeep, more or less, we have taken questions from everybody. It would be a stretch if we discuss around the same topic again. And there are some questions which in the comments we have already taken. So I think we should wrap up further.
We should probably request Mohit bhai to give some closing remarks.
मोहित भाई मुझे लग रहा है ड्रॉप हो गए या मुझे दिख नहीं रहे हैं. I mean, if Mohit is there, certainly love to hear him out.
I could see him, so maybe not sure.
Anyways, thanks Mohit, thanks Sandeep bhai, Nikesh, and everyone who joined and asked relevant questions. So definitely a great value addition, and I surely think we made some sense to everyone. So we'll come again with another interesting session as and when time demands. So till then, take care. Happy learning and happy earning. Bye. Thanks.
Thank you.